listening to Athleisure Kitchen, where you'll get the inside scoop with those in the culinary world, from celebrity chefs, food personalities, restaurateurs, and more. I'm your host, Kimmy Smith of Athleisure Mag, so set an extra plate as we chat all things culinary. We attended the 13th annual StarChefs International Chefs Congress a couple of weeks ago in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. This 3-day event focused on chefs and restaurateurs that we enjoy eating in their restaurants or seeing them on an array of TV programs, to supporting chefs rising in their field and some top appliance, cooking, and food producers in the market. Throughout the event, we were able to enjoy a number of sessions that included pairing wines with the iconic Dinosaur BBQ, a fried rice battle which was judged by Chef Marcus Samuelsson, Chef Everett Lee, Chef Nicole Ponesca, and Christine Lee, with participants that included Bravo's top chef, Chef Seldon Simeon, a discussion on West African food and educating listeners on its flavors and importance via Kith and Kin's Kwame Onwuachi, and a number of hands-on culinary classes, as well as being able to walk the floor to try a number of treats by brands in the space. On today's Athleisure Kitchen, we sit down with Will Blunt, managing editor of StarChefs, in one of the breakout rooms on the floor of the event to talk about how he came to being a part of the publication StarChefs, as well as the annual event, the purpose behind StarChefs, speakers and participants he looks forward to especially seeing at the event, and more. Make sure you keep an eye out for the November issue of Athleisure Mag, which will drop the week of Thanksgiving, which will have a number of interviews and images from the 13th annual StarChefs International Chefs Congress held in Brooklyn.
I graduated, and like everyone else, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I eventually thought that maybe I taught some high school tennis for a little while, worked on the hill, but I decided I wanted to jumpstart my career by moving to New York. Mm-hmm. And it was the height of the internet exuberance in the late 90s. And I was thinking about going the path of a more like conservative banking job.
Nice.
And so I did some interviews, and I got, I was kind of got hives and allergic to the concept, and I eventually, I just took a minute to help a friend at what is StarChefs now, mm-hmm. a friend who had been hired as a first employee after a fundraising round, and I got the bug, and so I'm 20 years in now. I would say in terms of food, I've always loved food, but I kind of fell into it and then fell in love with the industry. Mm-hmm. I do cook and I'm really into food, but I'm most inspired by the industry and the people in the industry. So we, in the early 2000s, like most internet companies, didn't have a lot of direction, but by the early 2000s, we firmly committed with my business partner Antoinette mm-hmm. to be completely on the trade side, publish for chefs, and make our mission to support chefs and other people in the industry.
Wow.
So the idea with that is just that it's a wonderful industry, lots of opportunity, but it's also an industry with a lot of pains and challenges. Mm-hmm. And so we have a classifieds area that helps with labor, which is a pain. All of our publishing is about best practices and inspiration for chefs. And they're really passionate people. So I've been most inspired by the people in the industry. Mm-hmm. And I do love food, and I've gotten to know it really well, but I think it's the people in the industry that inspire me.
Wow. So what are your day-to-day roles in StarChefs?
Yeah, I now, fortunately, have evolved a bit. We're about 15 full staff, and for this event, we might have 100 people working on it, but I do a bit of everything now. We fortunately evolved to the point where we have great people that have different departments, but I'm a part of fundraising and development, HR. I have made a point to stay engaged. So when we were in the early days, let's say we were just five people, mm-hmm. I learned to use a camera, my business partner as well, Antoinette. And there was kind of a rule that everyone needed to use a camera.
Exactly.
And we were, classic startup, bootstrapping. So we would do the tastings and interviews. I didn't mention this, but our thing I think that distinguishes StarChefs from any other publication is that we do probably 600 tastings interviews on the ground every year. So that's all across the country, organized into 4 markets typically in terms of emphasis by quarter. And we spend 2 to 3 hours with a chef, pastry chef, som, an artisan baker, coffee roaster, anyone who's in the industry doing something well. We will visit them and document them, get to know what they're doing, and then share what we think is done well and what would be inspiring for other people. So all that to say, I still do that because it's important. Well, it's something I enjoy doing, but it's also, we now have a wonderful editor, writers, we have a full-time photographer that are super capable, but I still keep my toe in the editorial.
Which you kind of, have to.
Just to stay in touch, and also because as I was saying, I love the culture and the restaurant community.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned about chefs in working in this environment that still just keeps you so inspired to be a part of this every day?
Yes. So the industry is still, despite all the media attention and food TV, but all the explosion of the celebrity chef scenario, it's still super merit-based and egalitarian. So at the end of the day, even if you had a Top Chef show or whatever, you still face all the same challenges. Many of the chefs that really early on inspired, and some of them are early supporters on our board, but many of the chefs that I think inspired me initially, they all started at the dishwasher level.
Right.
I think John George, who's on our board of directors in the beginning, made dog food that wasn't even make human food. He's on the dog food shift. Marcus Samuelsson, who's a great friend and supporter.
We love him.
Inspired. He worked a hot dog stand. Bobby Flay scooped ice cream. They all start. And so it's very honest in that sense, and there's not a lot of skipping. I think there's maybe less patience in the industry because the demographic is such that, there's such an explosion. There are labor shortages. There are more opportunities quicker in the industry, but at the end of the day, there still is this certain base sense of needing to work to get to where you are. And I admire that, and I like supporting people who are working that hard and trying to make it in an industry that has a lot of opportunity but a lot of failure.
Absolutely.
I think it's 80% of our restaurants fail within 3 years, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So we, and I think my staff, with a lot of great people that have worked in the industry or gone to culinary school, we are all motivated by trying to be that extra leg up or a piece of perspective or inspiration. Folks that come to this conference, the best version of for their experience, they're busting their ass all year. They come here, they get a couple of days or a few days off to be inspired, get a shot in the arm, and remind themselves of why they do what they do.
We hope you love hearing Athleisure Kitchen on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you enjoy listening to this podcast. Athleisure Studio is proud to have an array of shows that you can enjoy on our network, and we want to let you know about Tribe Goals. Tribe Goals shares with you the inside scoop on changemakers across an array of verticals, from beauty, fitness, sports, music, and more. We find out how they came into their careers and what inspired them to be on their path. We also find out who their inspirations are as well. Binge this season as we have podcast episodes with 5-time NBA All-Star Al Horford of the Philadelphia 76ers, Stars Powers Lala Anthony, the undefeated champ Layla Ali, and more. Make sure you follow us as we will drop Season 2 starting on Christmas Eve. And prior to that, we'll have an episode letting you know who you can expect to hear from soon. So what do you think are the 3 biggest issues that going into 2020 that chefs have that are not a problem per se, but just 3 things that they're probably concerned about going into just the next year, or whether it's facilitating their business?
I think one, actually tomorrow I'm hosting a panel discussion with Sean Feeney, who's partner Missy Robbins at Nisi, and Lilia, and then Danielle Soda-Innes, and we're going to be talking about restaurant culture, and moving restaurant culture forward. It's a lot of what our theme was last year, but it's about like being better humans and moving the industry forward in terms of how you treat people and the culture and all that good stuff. I think that everyone is on board in theory for that now, and I think the next step and one of the challenges like for 2020 and beyond is like how you walk the talk. So I think that's a challenge. It's easy to say like, you know, provide benefits, treat your employees better, more like decent hours and all those things, but like how do you develop the strategies to run like a successful business and still do that? So that's one. I think like there's something that's developed with chefs and folks in the industry, like in general, is trying to figure out also how they their brand image. It was another panel we just finished, but how you manage like your time and your capital and your image and what you invest in, and that's been like something that's been building up over time. Which events do you decide to do, all that kind of stuff, but now it's even more like with social media, how do you present yourself and how much energy you put into that, what opportunities you say yes to, and I mean obviously that's at a pretty high level. Not everyone's at that point, but I think that even on a micro level, and people are just starting out, still have to, when you're opening a restaurant, to decide where you invest in PR and social media. So that's another thing. I think there are the ongoing challenges. I don't know if they're like 2020 challenges, but they probably are. They seem to be becoming more acute, but it's like more and more scale and bigger organizations that are snatching up real estate. That independent restaurateurs have a harder time accessing. Starting a restaurant is harder and harder, but being able to have the leverage to get the right space at the right price, and keep it once you're successful, and that's become more. I mean, you look at like New York's a great example because Manhattan's like parts of Manhattan become unattainable, and really all the leases are controlled by the large management companies and the chains. Not that chains are all bad, they employ people, and there are some great ones that do great from scratch cooking, but I think that for the independent restaurateur and chef that's like trying to be an entrepreneur, that's a challenge. It's gotten more acute.
Wow. And my last question is, like, what are three, whether they are events, in terms of panels or demonstrations, what are three that you're excited about that are happening at this event over the 3 days? Which is tough, because it's only three.
No. There are a lot. I mean, our program's really strong this year. And we try to involve people who are, like, more or less famous. So our name is StarChefs, but we're really not about stardom. So some of them are the less obvious. I think that Ben and Brent from The Meat Hook, they're going to be doing a really cool demo on the main stage, which will be, they call it Vintage Beef. I don't know how much you know about Red Hook, but it's my local butcher, and they've been exploring like different ways to be sustainable. One like issue we have across the food system with meat, at least, is a lot of our USDA certification is like centered around young animals.
Yes.
So they are going to be fabricating 12-year-old bull and then serving like samples of it. I think it'll be a tartare.
Wow.
And apparently, I haven't had it, but apparently it tastes a bit like just like aged beef, which is a cool thing to demonstrate that dairy cows and bulls and animals who would have value. If we could get to a place where we utilize, not just the whole animal, but all animals. No,
I'm from the Midwest originally, so Indiana, this is,
So that'll be a really good one. I think the obvious one, like that everyone, I think has been we have the most signups for Francis Mama, who's on Chef's Table, who is inspiring. I've been wanting him to present for years, but he's closing the show, and he'll be building of fire in the parking lot outside.
I'm really excited about that.
On Tuesday, and then he'll be presenting on the main stage. Another cool thing about that is he'll be featuring a vegetable roll, like a large vegetable roll, to be caramelized and cooked with a fire, ahead of publishing a vegan cookbook next year, which is pretty cool since he's always been identified with like a lot of meats.
Right.
And I think that for our chefs, like one of the reasons that they're so, aside from the fact that Francis Mallman is has a great presence, cooking with fire is really a thing that chefs, it's a little bit of a challenge to figure out. Everyone wants to cook with fire and it's a trend, but to how to actually like harness fire, cook consistently at different temperature points. So those actual like real techniques are great takeaways for chefs.
Wow.
I think the panel discussion with Daniela and Sean are two like really special people that are great like models. They're like this examples of what the future of our restaurant industry should be. They're good models for like people should model themselves after those two. And one is a restaurateur and one is a chef, but they both have cool strategies for improving culture in restaurants. So.
Can't wait to sit with you again to share another great story with you at Athleisure Kitchen. Athleisure Kitchen is a part of Athleisure Studio, our multimedia podcast network, which is the division of Athleisure Media, and whose sister site is Athleisure Mag. Get the latest episode by listening, following, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Premium, Himalaya, or your preferred podcast platform. Find out additional information by checking out the show notes. You can stay in the loop on who future guests are by visiting us at athleisurestudio.com/Athleisure Kitchen, and on Instagram at Athleisure Kitchen and at Athleisure Studio. I'm your host, Kimmy Smith. Athleisure Kitchen is executive produced by Paul Farkas and myself, and is mixed by the team at Athleisure Studio. We'll be back with another episode, so make sure that you set an extra plate for us.